We say that, self-employed business owner. I think that's the oxymoron. If you're self-employed, you're not a business owner.
Yeah.
You're self-employed. Let's just leave it at that. You're self-employed.
Yeah. Welcome to the House on Insurance Podcast. My name is Ryan Federico. We are here, as always, with Ashton Delango Lunde. To my right side, Grant Lieber to my left side, riding deep with Mr. Edward Prichett, the man, the myth, the legend. And we are going to be talking about how to grow agencies. And for those of you who don't know Edward Prichett, he's a man of many talents, but primarily one of those major talents is growing massive life insurance agencies. And what we really want to cover today are some of the tips that Edward's learned along the way for people like us who are at $1 million agencies to get to $50 million plus agencies. You know, I guess without further ado, how you feeling, Edward?
I'm good, man. This is, it's always great to come to industry conventions and especially, you know, with a great IMO like we work with, and you get to mix and mingle and share, grow and learn. I mean, that's what these things are for. If one piece of advice right there, like if you're not doing that for yourself and your agency, you're kind of missing a very big piece that could really be accelerating the growth of any kind of agency or any kind of business.
Yeah.
Because it's not just in the insurance industry that you have events like this. It's, you know, doctors, lawyers, politicians even for some reason get together and have conventions. So, you know, why wouldn't you be?
We don't talk about that. We don't have any positions.
We won't go.
No positions on the podcast.
I know it's a weird time right now, but yeah.
Well, hey, listen, it's that was number one, by the way. We only gave him 3. It's like a genie. You only get 3 wishes. Number 1 was go to conferences. So just throwing that out. I'm just kidding. That wasn't number 1. But let me toss it to Grant.
The one question I did want to ask you, like on conferences, is because you've been to so many of them. This is what your 12, 13, 14?
Well, we used to have 2 conferences a year for quite a few years. I think I'm on like 22 or 23 now.
Okay.
Just for this organization.
Gotcha. So, you know, 23 with this company and, you know, many other with prior, like what is someone that has built such a big agency, like look to get out of this event? Like, obviously every time you go, there's maybe a different level that you're at. There's a different size of your agency. There's maybe a different intentionality. So like at the level you're at now, what does that look like?
Well, I mean, we all have heard that adage, iron sharpens iron, right? So this is an opportunity. I get a chance to be on the phone or have a Zoom meeting with other people who are building large organizations or have large organizations. Everyone's journey, everyone's path, they encounter different things along the way. So it's events like this that allow that personal connection, right? I love Zoom. It's great. But like we miss something without being able to shake someone's hand, to sit down and break bread with them, to do something like this. And that's what meetings, conventions, and I encourage people like, yes, I'm sure your organization probably has meetings and conventions, but the insurance industry is pretty big. There are a lot of conferences and conventions and places where you can interact with people who do something maybe just a little bit differently than you, right? Maybe you're more direct sales, they're more call center. Right? Maybe they do Medicare and you've heard about it, but you don't know what it is. And so now you get to make these connections and find those things that maybe not for the now, but sometime in the future will be something that will help you expand and grow your organization. So that's what I come to any event like an industry conference to do, is to find those people who are doing something differently than I'm doing, who are getting different results than I'm getting, and ask questions. I mean, that's how I've learned everything that I know in this industry, is asking questions of people who are getting it more right than I am.
Yeah, that's amazing, man.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that I've always seen, especially for you, is being able to go out there and perform individually at a high level while also growing a large organization. So especially in the beginning, when someone can't just go, all right, I'm going to do nothing but recruit. I'm not going to stop producing. I'm just going to do interviews, coach, build. You can't do that in the beginning because you got to pay your bills. So how do you balance, especially when you have a large organization, how do you balance, here's how I'm producing at a high level, but also building and coaching at a high level?
It's this funny thing called a calendar, right? I mean, it's the simplest things.
Yeah.
I can remember one of the things that my mentor told me very early on, and he still does it to this day. And he runs a $300 million organization now. But he would take a 8x11 sheet of paper, fold it down to where you have it into square, little rectangles of 8. Okay. So you have multiple days that you can put on there. There's like on this sheet, like what for the next day before you go to bed, what are the top 6 things that you have to get done that next day, right? And that might be, there's personal production stuff on there. There's agency building stuff on there. There's family stuff on there. But it's like knowing like, what are your priorities? I mean, that's the whole game is making sure that nothing ever becomes urgent. Because usually when it becomes urgent, that means there's been a mistake, you've dropped a ball, you haven't paid attention to your business. So if I know these are the 6 things that no matter what else happens, and hopefully those are the 6 things that I get done before noon, right? And those are the things that have to get done. And it really boils down to being able to structure your schedule around like, what am I trying to achieve? Well, what are the goals that I'm trying to get to this week, this month, this quarter, this year? And then that helps me to say, okay, for this day, because the only thing that really matters is what you're doing today. Like I can plan for what I'm going to be doing in 3 to 4 weeks, but guess what? It might change. But today, that the day that I'm in, the present that I'm in, this is the time that I can have the most impact on the future of my business. And if I don't know what I'm doing today and don't know what's the most important priority thing for me to do today, then what am I really doing?
Yeah.
I mean, we all act like, oh, I'm so busy, I don't have enough time. You have enough time. It's just you're wasting most of it, right? You're wasting most of it on those things that just really don't matter for that day to get you to where your goals are. Right. So really being able to clarify that and put the focus on those things. And then guess what? After you get those done, you're still gonna have a lot of time to do all the other things that they're vital. You know, they're important. You got to get them done. But that's how I'm able to try to keep track of, let's keep all these things moving and make sure that I don't get caught in that urgency addiction.
Yeah, man, that's incredible advice. I mean, some of the success principles of Universal keep coming out. That idea is from a great book called Think and Grow Rich, right? By Napoleon Hill. It's been around forever. That's about planning ahead. It's the Ivy Lee method that we've taught, many different times that can help you get ahead of the things that you want to accomplish the next day. So I want to get into Edward's top 3 things, but I just got to stop for a minute and talk about Ashton's watch. Because like you guys can't see this. There's lights and they're real bright. But we got this diamond blinged out watch right here. I don't know if you could like put it in front of Edward so the camera can see it or something like that. It is gleaming in my eyes right now. I'm getting distracted. It is like, wow. Anyway, sorry. Shout out to Ashton's watch. All right. Top 3 things. You're growing an agency, you're at $1 million and you want to get to $50 million. I know there's a million things. I know it's not just 3 things, but if you had to pick 3, what do you think of the 3 things that have helped you get to that level?
All right. So I was thinking about this and I appreciate the heads up. I mean, that's what makes these things important and vital to plug into and watch. Is I'm going to look for information from sources that actually curate what they're trying to talk about, not just like, oh, let's just sit down and chat. Okay, that's great. But again, intentionality. What are we chatting about? What are we trying to do? Number 1, and I think the most important one is you. Like it seems weird, but like I think the most important thing for building a large agency is, what are you doing? And I talked about it just a minute ago with those, here's my key things, my priorities has for the day. But if you want to build a large organization, you have to be the leader. You have to be attractive. You have to be getting results. You've heard phrases like cash flow glow, right? If you're not being successful, you cannot build an agency, right? Like I see people who they come in and yes, people talk about, man, building an agency, that's how you can have this legacy. You can have this business that, provides passive income and all these wonderful things. And yes, you can start recruiting day 1. You can. But if you start recruiting day one, you better be the best agent on your team, bar none. Like you have no more excuses to not be a top performer. You have to do the training. You have to seek knowledge. You have to put it in action. You have to make the dials. You don't have excuses anymore, right?
It's like speed of the leader, speed of the pack.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many adages like that, right?
Probably because they all work.
Because I'm sure that is true. I've seen people come into this industry. I've been in this industry on the independent side for 15 years now. And I've seen people come in like, well, I have this a huge list. I've been successful before. I'm just gonna recruit a lot of agents and they're gonna come work. And I've seen them recruit a lot of agents and they come on board. And it's funny, it all just fizzles out over time. Why is that? Because they have no guiding star. They have no person to tuck behind and follow. They have no one who you can borrow other people's credibility for a period of time, but eventually if you don't get your own credibility, those people who you've borrowed from are going to start attracting your people.
Yeah.
Right. We see that happen all the time. So number one, it has to be you. You have to go out. You have to get results. I get it. Is it hard? Yes. We wouldn't be able to make the income we make if it wasn't hard. Right. But is it worth it? I mean, I could get into that for a whole 30 minutes. Yes, it's worth it. So you have to say, are you worth it? Are you worth the fight? Are you worth the challenge? Are you worth putting in the work, putting in the effort? You're trying to build a business. So guess what? You don't get a 40-hour work week, right? I was up at 6:30 this morning handling things before coming to this meeting, right? And then guess what? The rest of the day, you were part of my day yesterday. Like, it's full because I am trying to build a large organization, and it starts with me. I have to be committed to that.
Yeah.
So that's number one.
I love that. And like, I always found it strange that, especially in a model like ours, where you grow in commission levels, that somebody would get to a higher commission level for the same work that they were doing a year ago and stop doing that work. Like, you're making more money for doing the same work, and you're just like, I'm just going to stop doing it. It doesn't make any sense. So got that. Number one, make sure you're in front, make sure you're leading by example. Make sure you're putting the work in, and nobody on your team is outworking you. I love that. What's number two?
Number two is system.
Oh,
you have to have a system, because you can scale to a certain size when it is just you, right? You can handle a certain number of direct reports. You can handle a certain size of an organization where you have those direct reports who become leaders, and they're doing their thing. But there's a certain point, an inflection point, where there's more. If you want to scale, because you're talking about like maybe you're $1 million agency right now.
Yeah.
And for me, like, when you get into that $8 to $10 million range a year in annual premium that's flowing through your organization, depending on the organization and the type of product that you sell, that might be 50 agents to do that. It might be 150 agents. And I put that lid at 150 because there's this number called Dunbar's number. It's anthropology. You can go look it up.
Let's do this. I'm into this. By the way, this is a chemical engineering degree from Yale, so it's like don't be surprised if we go down some interesting roads here.
Yeah, we might
Talk about Dunbar.
Dunbar's number. So this anthropologist, last name Dunbar, doing some research on ape groups to see like apes, like chimpanzees, gorillas, things of that nature. And he found that when the size of the groups hit 150, they would start to split. So like, there's always a leader. There's, gorillas, you got the silverback, right? Like there's one alpha person that is leading the pack. But when they got to 150, fighting increased, tensions increased, and then the groups would split, separate into smaller groups, and then they would grow to that number and do the same thing. And no matter what you believe about evolution, okay, we have a lot of similarities with our ape friends, right? And there's that 150 number, like, it's this number that says, like, if I have 150 in a group that sees me as a leader, if I don't have a lot of structure and a lot of built-in leadership, I can't grow past that number if it's all just me. It's being able to hand off that torch and say, guess what? This is your team. This is your group. You have autonomy, right? I see a lot of people in this industry where they try to control everything, okay? And you're going to put a lid on how big you can grow if you're the only one that people can come to for answers, if you're the only one that can make decisions for the organization. So being able to have that releasing of autonomy, especially in the independent world that we are, none of my agents are employees.
Yeah.
Right? They all get to own their own business. But if I never let them own their own business, how happy are they going to be when they say, wait, I got into this to be my own boss, but I have to do everything that he says all of the time. And so this is where having systems where you have a system that people are part of, they're getting results, and they want to take that system, and I'm going to allow them to be able to innovate on their own when they get to a certain point.
Sure.
Right? But I'm going to work to make that system as strong as possible so that when they go, even their innovative system that they borrowed from what I'm using is pretty close to the original. Right? Like, it's because it's getting results, but I'm going to give them and allow them to have that autonomy, that ability to make decisions, to build their business, because I don't want to be a business owner that is having to manage 10,000 people. Like, one, it's just not possible. I want to be a business owner that's in partnership with a whole bunch of other business owners and do what the insurance industry does best, get my 1%, 2%, 3% override on a huge flourishing organization that I get to be just a guide, right? I get to be the one they come to every now and then. Hey, I'm running into this. Yeah, I've run into that. Here's what I did. Let me know how you do.
So it's almost like systems of delegation, where it's like you can empower downline leadership to grow the organization further so that infighting doesn't happen, so that alpha groups don't break off.
Yeah, well, and I guess when I mean systems, is like there has to be a way that you do business, that you teach to your whole organization. And the final part, I started with the Dunbar number because I have to build that system with the knowledge that I want to hand that off to someone and let them go run with it.
Yeah.
Right. Like if I don't have a system for, here's how we recruit, here's how we contract, here's the carriers that we typically work with, here's the niche that we work in, this is what we sell, this is how we sell it, here's our culture, here's what we stand for. Like I have systems built around that, and I teach, talk, testimonial, like I do all those things around that system, and then I empower those leaders to then take that system and go run with it. Right. So it's system overall. Like you have to have something. You can't say, hey, come work with me. You can build your own business. And we get to this. Okay, now you go and you're off on your own. You have autonomy. Go have fun. And never have to talk to them. They never have a system that they're using or engaging with. Right. So I have to know my system.
I was only chuckling because I think there's a lot of companies that do that. That are just like, welcome in.
Welcome.
Kick rocks. Go generate some business.
Here's your contract. Yeah. Figure it out. Like that's how I got into the industry. Like even though I worked for a captive organization, it was, okay, we got a little bit of this over here, a little bit. There was no system.
Well, and hence why he's sitting on this couch as Edward Prichett and not in a cubicle with that company anymore, right? Because there wasn't any system that could help support. So great tip number 2. All right, bringing home tip number 3. What's number 3?
All right, the last thing that I think that if you want to build a business, that every entrepreneur, no matter your industry, but definitely in the insurance industry, we have a lot of people who get started in this. They don't know anything about business. Does anybody here have an MBA?
I do not have an MBA.
MBA. Okay. And even
Grant's the closest.
Even if you
He's
did,
got a theater degree from ASU. I'm just kidding.
Even if you did have an MBA, does that make you qualified to run a business? And my answer is going to be definitive. I know some Harvard MBAs who struggle with running a business. The thing is, you have to do education around how to grow and structure an actual business. The first 2 things I was talking about is it's you and how you relate to your agency and your agents. It's building a system and how you relate to your leaders, and still talking about agents. But then there comes that point when I want to have a scalable business that I have to have staff. I have to have people to help run if I want an enterprise, right? That's where it really starts to get fun, is when you have, like we were talking about, you mentioned delegation earlier, all the little things that I do throughout the day. There are certain things that I can delegate to someone that can do it 80% as well as I can, and still allow us to get the results that we need to get. So doing the research that you have to do to learn how to actually be a business owner, right? My favorite book for this one is Donald Miller's Business Made Simple. Right?
Such a great
It gives you a great outline of here are the key things about running and operating a business. And you can read through something like, I didn't even know I was supposed to be worried about that. That's why you need to read books like that. You have to do that education. We talk about, there's working on doing the business, scripts and sales training and product training and all of that stuff. Do that. We do a lot of that, and we talk about that a lot. But we don't talk about LLC or S corp, tax filings.
Hey, don't let the taxes come bite you.
Should I be paying quarterly at this point in time? What do I have in reserves for future marketing? What are the 1 year, 3 year, 5 year game plans that I have for my organization to grow? These are the kind of things, and there's so many. I'm seeing someone out of the corner of my eye, and I'm thinking about another book that's been helpful to me on that. And that's a book called Traction.
Yeah.
Right. So and there's so many things like this that are out there. But it's are you digesting that information too? Yeah. Because you say you want to build $100 million business, but if you put $100 million business in some of y'all's laps, you're gonna have a bankrupt business. It can change that quickly when you don't know how to operate a business. Get into one tax issue with the IRS and see what that does to you.
The IRS has entered the chat.
I'm sure.
They're shutting the cameras down right now.
They're already here. They're already here listening to this. But it's like it's those kind of things. Like you don't have to be an accountant or a CPA, but you have to know how to talk to your accountant or CPA.
Yeah.
Right. I can't just, here's my books, let me know how it works. Like I have to know a little bit about that if I want to have that size of a business.
Yeah.
So, that part, the business education, micro MBA, whatever you want to call it, what are you doing to educate yourself there? If you don't educate yourself there, you're going to stay small. Yeah, you're going to have there's nothing wrong with having a sole proprietorship. And, like I just got this little business that I can't pass down to anybody and isn't really worth anything long term. It's making me some cash right now, but it's not a business.
If you want to scale to a larger business,
Well,
you need to do the things that larger businesses do.
You're always going to technically be self-employed if you don't actually cross the bridge to business ownership.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we talk about this there are dentists and lawyers out there that think that they have a business because they have a name and a sign and whatever.
An office.
But they don't actually have a business because if they stopped, the business stops.
Yeah.
And learning how to actually build and structure a business is what I think most people are trying to do in this industry. We want something that like we could actually walk away from. I was in Europe for 6 weeks this summer.
And like, this isn't like broke Europe. All right. So this isn't like we're staying in hostels in Europe. It's like the nicest hotels in the nicest cities with a planner like this big of your driver will pick you up here and your meals are going to be provided here.
I like things planned out.
Yeah.
I don't when I go on vacation, I don't want to think. I want it laid out.
But you were saying, you were making a point though. You were there for 6 weeks.
6 weeks, whole family there, and we're 6 hours ahead. So, I'm waking up over there doing the whole day with the family. East Coast is still asleep. And I was able to, over the course of that, in multiple different businesses, not just my insurance agency, but in real estate and finance, do a couple quick check-ins. But because we're structured properly, everything is running correctly, the business actually ran, and I got to enjoy time like I'd never had before with my family over that 6-week period of time. And that's a business versus if I had actually been self-employed, which even for me, I would say 5 years ago, if I had tried to do that, I would have come back to a dumpster fire, And it's just, I had to realize that if I wanted to actually have a business, which is what we talk about and what we push for, I have to make sure that I know what I need to know to be able to structure things in the correct way so that I actually have a business and not continue to live in this self-employed business owner. We say that, self-employed business owner. I think that's the oxymoron. If you're self-employed, you're not a business owner.
Yeah.
You're self-employed. Let's just leave it at that. You're self-employed.
Yeah.
Right. And so to actually be able to turn your enterprise, what you're trying to do, into a business, it takes education. And you have to add that as a part of your ongoing process as you're continuing to scale.
Well, listen, we just got some serious education from Mr. Edward Pritchett. Those are your top 3 things and how to scale your business if you want to. Maybe you just want to be an independent insurance agent. Maybe that's all you want out of this. Totally fine. We meet those people all the time. Maybe you're like us and you got ambitions on more and you need to start taking some of this advice. I think like all 3 of us are going to take. But we always appreciate any time that we get to hang out with Mr. Edward Pritchett. Thank you so much for all that you do for us and for giving back to the community of the How to Sell Insurance podcast. We're going to keep episodes coming to you. As always, like and subscribe. We got some real interesting sponsorships coming up. You guys are going to see some real cool stuff that we do with insurance carriers. So make sure that you hit that little bell to remind you anytime that we shoot a new episode out. And we'll see you guys on the next episode. Later, everybody.